Mm. What is what is the beast? The beast is that space that is not in your heart, meaning that hole in your heart, that place where that light of God's creation is supposed to be, right? It is. But when your ego and your fear and your self loathing get so intense that you have to be, some pretty strange stuff. Anyway, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, Al Bob. That's me. Here it is, 44 seconds into the show. And we'd love it if you could hit some likes, subscribe. Let's get above 500 and something subscribers. So it's we're here. Here's this guy. This guy's always fun.
National resistance using a few exemplars. As Rasmus Jarlov, a member of parliament in Denmark, explains, people in Denmark now see the United States as a bigger threat than North Korea and Iran. Denmark has until now been one of the most pro-American countries in the world and one of the longest-standing allies of the United States in history. But the people in Denmark do not, no matter what your political party is in Denmark, let's be very clear, the people of Denmark do not like the fact that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are referring to themselves as dominant predators who need Greenland, who want it, who want to take it, quote, or else, because they call themselves dominant apex predators. That's what Republican MAGAs are saying. That's what Trump's views are, so we should just take it. Yeah, that's rubbing Denmark the wrong way. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. In Panama right now, the people there are saying there will be, in some of their leadership, the past leader of Panama, past president is saying, quote, there will be many casualties. In other words, Panama is preparing, although they don't want it, if the United States invades, to go to war, a bloody war against the United States if America tries to infringe and invade or take the Panama Canal by force. That's what they're saying there. Take a look at this. Nearly half of Danes see U.S. as a threat. About 78 to 80% oppose the sale of Greenland. Pretty overwhelming numbers right there. We also told you about people in Greenland who do not like the fact that Donald Trump is infringing on their sovereignty and disrespecting them the way they are. Take a look at this article on Panama. Marco Rubio's weekend visit to Panama is set to offer clues to a pressing question: whether the next 4 years of American policy will more closely resemble an imperial conquest or a hardball real estate negotiation. Let's just take the real estate aspect of it. Like, we all realize that Donald Trump bankrupted most of the companies that he touched. Donald Trump bankrupted multiple casinos. The hardball negotiator couldn't run casinos in Jersey, okay? The hardball negotiator. Will we be imperial conquest or will we be hardball real estate negotiation? I mean, the framing of this is pretty stupid in and of itself. It goes on to say, on the ground here in Panama, members of the country's small political elite have been bracing for either. The former president says, quote, I think there will be many, many casualties on our side and international condemning of the United States. They're preparing, they're gearing up for a bloody war against the United States of America. Wall Street Journal's headline for their opinion piece, their editorial board, is calling Donald Trump's actions not just against Panama and Denmark, but against Mexico and Canada and Trump's tariffs, the dumbest trade war in history. Trump will impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico for no good reason. I'll give you the reason. The reason is that Donald Trump's psychotic. He's a maniac. He's bad for business. He's bad for America. Yet you, the Wall Street Journal, normalized him. You, Politico, normalized him. All these papers were like, oh, he's a businessman. He was never a businessman. He's a con artist. He's a fraud. He's a criminal. He's a convicted felon. He's a sexual predator. He was found liable for sexual assault. So yeah, in my opinion, that makes him a sexual predator. He's a disgusting, vile human being who was saying that we need to go back to 1870 and y'all supported this. Well, I think it'll be good for business. The stock market was up 55 to 60% when President Biden was in office. The returns 55 to 60%. And right now, Donald Trump's oligarchs are shorting the market and predicting depression. You heard that right. Donald Trump's oligarchs, the hedge funds, the venture capitalists, the private equity, they are betting against America that the economy will tank so that they can make money when the economy fails. That's what Trump's billionaire crew is doing right now. But I digress. Let's just show you what's going on in Panama right now with the protests on the street. People are pissed. They're out there. They are angry. They are livid. I'll show you this clip right here. Let's play it. If you go around Panama right now, you'll see American bald eagles with the no symbol around it. Just take a look at some of this journalism that was done, speaking with some local Panamanian leaders. Here, play this clip.
The message is a little clearer. 25 years after the canal was returned to Panama, the United States taking back control, as Donald Trump envisions, would be seen on site as an invasion. Caution. This is our message to President Trump. Have a little respect. Respect the sovereignty of Panama. The canal belongs to Panama, and we will not sell it. It will continue to be a Panamanian canal serving the world, including the United States, but it is the property of Panama and the Panamanians.
And who is benefiting most from this? China. I mean, China has its ambassadors there talking about cultural exchange and how we so value the people of Panama and we want to celebrate their heritage. While America's out there, give us your canal. What do you think resonates more with the people of Panama? This is just playing right into China's hand. This is China's ambassador to Panama. So as Rubio's there saying, give us, we want to take your land or else. This is what the ambassador to Panama from China is saying. It's an AI translation of it, the way the other one was actually it's an AI translation. This is not her actual voice, but it's how the AI translates it, so you can hear it, play it.
Not only local Chinese communities participated, but also those from 2 other countries and others. The souls of different countries at Rabin have food, handicrafts, and various cultural activities. This is a cultural feast where people of all ethnic groups celebrate through such a temple fair. This year is a very important reflection of cultural exchange.
And then finally, as I said, Donald Trump sending an envoy to directly negotiate with Maduro, which would be in direct contravention. I mean, Rubio, Secretary of State Rubio, put sanctions on Venezuela. And now Donald Trump went behind his back to have a direct negotiation with Maduro when the real president is Edmundo Gonzalez, not Nicolas Maduro, as Maduro threatened to invade Puerto Rico. This is what Maduro said about Puerto Rico. Here, play it.
The independence of Puerto Rico is still pending, and we will achieve it with the forces of Brazil and the Abreu y Lima Battalion leading the way.
As Congressmember Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, she's from Florida, where they have a Venezuelan community. While Trump distracts with DEI bluster, his team is secretly settling a corrupt bargain with Maduro to sell out Venezuelan democracy, enrich big oil donors and regime insiders, and deport lawful TPS holders, people with temporary legal protection status, to face brutal repression, send Venezuelans from Florida back to Venezuela to get killed. Trump will always side with the dictators. That's the status right now. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers.
Yes, let's get to 4 million subscribers. Hit subscribe. Come on. So that's that guy. They have to realize that all these people have their own little whatever opinion, but you can't not say, like, in less than 20 days, Donald Yump, Mr. Humpty, Carrot Head himself, has put in the most unbelievably sick, and not like good. The kids say, "Boy, that's sick." Sick. Like you heard him. He's got all these billionaire bros, pushing the United States into the um, gutter, and they're going to short the stock market, right? That's when you bet on the collapse of the economy. So our economy was not the best, but it was getting better and doing okay and breathing. It wasn't in the ICU. The ambulance has not even arrived yet, and our economy is dying. I mean, I just went into a store, and it was mind-boggling. I went to there are different stores I look at that have a benchmark of what it is, right? So I looked like one of the best benchmarks of the economy is Harbor Freight. It's a kind of hardware store that has pretty much and lots of stuff. It's like Lowe's meets God knows what, and everything in there it's like the Dollar Tree. Everything's made in China, so you can get a great or good pair of screwdrivers, set of 12 screwdrivers of every size, from Jagunda down to teeny, for about $6. Now, that same set that I saw 3 weeks ago, early January, before the big ice storm, that set was on sale for $5.95. Right now, it's $26. Right. What other things that I buy? Oh, like glasses. Like these guys. These guys, they sell there for $1.95. They were $6. Right. Flashlights that I get there for $1.75 were $7. Right. So that's a good. I went to my friend. She has a restaurant. She was paying for 400 eggs, a case of eggs, 400 eggs. She was paying $22. January 10th, right? She now has to pay $210. So good luck with that. Gasoline. I went to the cheapest place to get gasoline in the 3 counties is the Walmarts in near Johnson City. Last time I bought gas there was maybe 4 or 5 days before Downey got sworn in, and gas was $2.48. Today it was $2.68. And nothing has really changed. We get 40% of all our oil from Canada, right? And that price of 25% a tariff hasn't really gone into the equation yet, but the price has gone up that much. Thank you, Donnie Trump. Good luck. But these guys who I've listened to in the thread, they do a better job of getting all the specifics down. I'm just gonna here's a good one.
Struggles for its life till the last. Greetings, my dear beloved children. Today we have come close to the issue of vital importance to you. How you can maintain energy balance and preserve harmony in your soul when everything happening around is reaching the point of absurdity now. Shortly before, it seemed to many of you that the worst things are over, but with every single day, the situation gets from bad to worse, and people are literally prevented from breathing or being the masters of their own.
So that was basically giving a tip of hat that, we have just kind of pulled out of the chaos and insanity of what COVID was, right? The poor um, response of the government. Thank you, Donald Trump. We had a ton of PPE and ventilators and everything ready to go for that kind of thing. And he sold it to a friend of his for nothing, and he got something on the backside of that. And so all the warehouses, storehouses were no longer. He's now pulled us out of the WHO, the World Health Organization. He is basically pulling the plug on every bit of research there is. He's cutting everything out, and that's like it's. Richard Nixon tried to do that, and the Supreme Court said, "Oh no, Congress holds the purse strings. Mr. President, you can't do that." So, and others tried to. Ronald Reagan tried to do it. Georgie Porgy tried to do it, and so Dick tried to do it, and even Obama tried to do it. So the whitest black man around. So, guys, if you can't see that this is a straight up scripted coup. I mean, we've never had a democracy. We started out as a republic, and just look at how Greece and Rome went from their republic to an oligarchy, especially Rome. And so we are heading, 1984. Brave New World, Hunger Games, Handmaid's Tale, any of those books, right? It's where it's at. But if there's a spiritual, things are going on. My Christian friends, I'm a Roman Catholic by being brought up culture, but I'm a theologian. I'm a student. I'm a scholar. So I've studied every freaking religion, and so this is more the esoteric. And what does esoteric mean? Hidden knowledge, right? So it's not like devil worship.
The masters of their own destiny. We've already talked a lot why this happens. The wounded beast has nothing to lose, and it struggles for its life till the last breath. This is how all low vibration civilizations' representatives, embodied as humans, feel now, even if they themselves are not aware of it and simply act according to their collective consciences, programs instilled in them. As for the
Mythos of blood, I feel for you, buddy, and I pray for you. Right now, Father, hear my prayer. Protect Mythos of blood. Send your love to Mythos of blood. Let the community of the cadre surround Mythos of blood. We're here to protect Mythos's blood consciousness. Mythos blood superconscious mind, that spirit, that hole in his heart. Mythos of blood was attacked and created a hole in Mythos of blood's heart. And we're here to share our love and affection and support. Mythos, I understand that it actually happened. I've been around long enough to see it happen. I had a great teacher of mine whose father was a World War II hero. He got like 8 silver stars, and he got everything but the Congressional Medal of Honor. And he went off and became a professor at Brown. And then in the 50s, he was blacklisted because he was talking about democracy and how to bring love and understanding to the politics of America. And he got, not only did he get blacklisted, not only did he he was a tenured professor, he lost his job, he lost his house, his wife left him, he took his kids away from him, and then he, ended up, quote unquote, committing a suicide, but his hands had been tied behind his back. It's hard to commit suicide when that happens, right? My boss at the um, you know VA in Brooklyn, Fort Hamilton, right? We developed a. All these kids were coming back from Vietnam, totally addicted to heroin. I mean, they didn't do heroin in Vietnam. They got blown up. Helicopter picks them up, takes them to hospital in Saigon. Saigon, saves them from dying, but they're still really fucked. They get put on a C-130. If they're on the East Coast, they fly first to Germany, then to the East Coast. If they're on the West Coast, first they go to the Philippines, and then to Hawaii, then to the West Coast. And every time they got in that C-130, they put a needle in their arm and they put on, um, morphine to keep them quiet. Otherwise, I mean, they're writhing in pain, so they totally knock them out with morphine. And so by the time they would get to, they go through a few operations at these different hospitals, and when they finally make it to their neighborhood in the hospital of the VA, they're stone cold. They were basketball stars one year and no legs the next, right? And they're Lieutenant Dan, and total heroin addict, So I understand, you know, you know. But see, I've been murdered a couple of times, and you have to understand that the material, what seemingly is a material world, is an illusion, right? And you have to understand, you have to use whatever obstacle. I mean, I have a lot of obstacles. I'm the dead man walking. Last week I went to my two major doctors who, blood panel, blah, blah, blah. And they said, boy, it's pretty amazing. You know, you're a dead guy, but all of your organs are doing great. Everything's fine. It's just it's a lot of pain. Yeah. You don't want to use anything. You routinely are able to deal with your pain through exercise and meditation and prayer. Keep it up. I wish we knew how to do that, but anyway. hmm Well, rumors are tough, but the main thing is, see, I've lived here 25 years. There've been so many rumors of me that, oh, he's a CIA agent. Oh, but I'm out there in the community helping people all the time, right? And so I've touched enough people's lives that, no, Al, no, please, you got to be kidding me. Look at that guy. No, he's a saint. He's a guy who's always there for everybody else and never asking anything for himself. I know it's difficult. I've been there. I can totally, I'm not sympathetic. I'm empathetic. Buddy, I've been there, right? In New York City when we were running the housing authority, and I got so much crap. And the only way I could kind of ameliorate it when the New York City Housing Authority said, okay, we're supposed to be doing what you guys do, so we're just going to bring you into the New York City Housing Authority, and we'll give you a budget, and we'll blah, blah, blah. We set up a thing to do exactly what you guys do in 1935, and we've only done one building. You guys have only been around for 3 years. You've done 50 buildings, You put 500 families off the street into a home of their own, and you started your own bank and your own healthcare system, and you're feeding everyone. And you can't believe the kind of rumors, the kind of, we would have cops in the street beating us up, literally. And the attitude, oh, we have to fight back. We'll have Molotov cocktails on the roof. And I said, you guys are freaking nuts. No. Right? And that was right around when that same kind of group in Philadelphia that did the same thing we did. They were like, because we weren't the only ones doing what we were doing. We may have been the most successful. We may have been the most, because we didn't get angry. So How did we deal? You know, they would just kick the door down and beat the crap out of us because they legally couldn't get rid of us. We kept going to court and winning. So they said, well, we'll just beat them up. We'll just kill them. So, the anarchists wanted to fight, and we said no. So what did we do? The Hispanic Women's Poetry Alliance went down on the street and read poetry to all the police. And within an 18-month period, we read poetry to every policeman, all 15,000 of them in New York City. And they're all, I love those guys. So no policeman would beat us up. When the oligarchy would send them in, they'd say, fuck you. And then they would go harass the oligarchy. That's what you have to do. You have to build a political structure, not just of yourself to be eaten alive, but you have to have a community. You cannot exist without a community. So, I know it's tough, Mythos. I really know. I do get it. You don't associate with anyone. I go out of my way to associate with everyone. I remember going to a Ku Klux Klan barbecue, right? And I was wearing all of my, all the clothes I got at Walmart's that were women's, pants and shirts. I was wearing fluffy, pajamas that had unicorns and Daffy Duck on it and Tweety Pie. And I had this really sheer, beautiful blouse, but it was really big. It just kind of hung on me, and it had all kind of sparkles on it. And I had, like a whatchamacallit, like a hat like this, that represents, if you understand Southern metaphors, stuff like this, right? Or I think I was wearing an orange hunter's thing that said "Born to Hunt," right? And I went to this Ku Klux Klan barbecue, and I knew a bunch of the guys. And that's because they were laughing one time and said, "You should come to one of these out in the forest," because they knew I could shoot. Meaning, I was brought up with guns early. One of my best friends from third grade on, his parents and his grandparents, great-parents, were his great-grandparents. His two great-grandfathers started the National Rifles Association. Right? So I learned how to shoot a gun. And so I know about it. See, the guns don't kill people. People kill people. But the way they're sold, you don't need to, no one needs an AR-15, No, sorry. Really, no one needs a gun. If you learn how to talk to people, you don't need a gun. So that's why I don't need a gun. There are a ton of people. The other day I was at a place where pretty much everyone was, had a gun, right? They all were, carrying it out, right? And two of the old guys I knew really well, right? And so I went over and we were talking, and then the younger guys, who want to rub shoulders with the older guys, go, "Who's this guy? He doesn't have a gun." And they looked at him, and this guy goes, he's got a 9mm. He goes, "Al, take my gun from me." So I said, "Okay." So I kind of put my thumb on a nerve in the plexus up here, and his arm went numb, and I just took the gun out of the thing, and I took out the clip, and I took the shell out, and I took, the barrel from the body of the gun, and I placed it all down on the table, and then I said to these two younger guys who were like in their late 30s, "Let's see you put that together." I think he said that, and so the guy goes, "Hey, Al, you gotta." So I kind of, hit that spot again so he could feel his arm, and he said, "This guy just paralyzed my shooting arm without having to hit it or do anything. He just hit that spot, and my arm wouldn't work. He took the gun from the holster, and he took the clip out, the bullet out, and the barrel out." then they said, let's see you put it back together. And they couldn't. So the gunning thing, that's bad. It's the people, right? And that is a metaphor to the rest of this country, the rest of this world. And we are coming up to I mean, things are going on up in the planets above us. The planets are aligning. All the small planets are aligning. First time ever in that they can figure out. Things are happening up in our solar system that have never happened before, and that's one reason why all this craziness is going on.
High-rank dragon reptiles and reptiloids at the helm, they are perfectly aware of the things actually taking place on Earth now, and therefore act purposefully, trying to do everything possible to keep her vibrations at the level that let them survive. For this purpose, they create the situations when people generate the low vibration energies of fear, despair, aggression, hopelessness, and permanent irritation they need. This is exactly the reason for another round of toughening of the measures on public health protection in many countries of the world. And though it sounds like an undisguised mockery at people, a huge amount of low vibration creatures embodied as humans take everything as gospel, thereby provoking pure human souls outbursts of negative energies who cannot put up with such a naked, arbitrary rule of authority.
So, are you getting this, Mythos? You're being attacked because you're vulnerable. The only thing that can help you not be as vulnerable as you are is that you have a community, right? And there's plenty of people around that will, right here at Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, there's truly, we're here to pray for you. We're here to support you. Right here, a lot of people would say, "Oh, this guy's a troll. Just get rid of him." No, you are valuable. I value you. Now try that with someone who is trying to destroy your life. Well, I have. Again, people have murdered me. I've died 7 times. Been shot twice. I've been in war zones, right? And not just ones that wars. There are war zones all over our country, right? There's cities that have wars. Lower East Side in 1970s were 5 murders on my one little street every friggin' week for 20 years. Stories, and it's clear I'm telling those honest truth and get none nonsense. The real nonsense is, yes, it's hard not to get angry. It's hard not to really feel attacked. But every day, I could go in that direction. I have nothing. I mean, nothing. I sleep on concrete. Oh God, sleeps on concrete. My bed is a bunch of cardboard with a couple blankets on top of it, right? And when it was super cold, that was pretty nippy. It was warmer than a deep green, which I couldn't get out of. I couldn't get in or out of that neck of the woods for almost 5 weeks, right? So I left like that, expecting to come back in a day or two, not 5 weeks later. So I had no access to any of my medicines, right? So for good 5 weeks, I didn't take any of my medicines, and so I had to be restrictive of my diet, and I had to be real disciplined on my prayers. Anyway, so when I got, the doctors gave me the blood tests and all that, they said, "Oh wow, your cholesterol is doing great. Your this is doing great. Your da 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 da. It's good. Good. You're staying on your medications." I said, "Well, I haven't been able to do them for like 6 weeks." And I said, "What?" He said, "Your blood pressure is like 125 over 60. It's like, yeah, what? Your cholesterol is Anyway, the thing is, Mythos, I believe in you. I have faith in your better self. You know, you're experiencing a real hard time, right? But you can always, I mean, every day in every way, I let love's co-creation come into my life. And I say, God, I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help me take the wheel from my hand. And it always works out. Right? And so you have to basically realize your life is not about you. It's about all the others. You know, every cell, every microbe, every animal, everything that's in existence is love's co-creation. So if you are being accused of all of this stuff, right? Basically, what you really, I mean, you have to find a community, you know. So I basically around here, this is the Bible Belt, you know. This is the Ku Klux Klan land of everything, to the point that it's not even the Ku Klux Klan anymore. It's like everybody, right? So, you know, I found my little spot here, 25 years ago, and this was just one of many, many, many things I had. I had a lot of properties and stuff, and a number of businesses, and my consulting thing, and blah blah blah. Then I died, right? And then I knew I had to change my life, so I sold everything I had except this place, right? And I basically live on $8,000 a year. That's it. And it's more than enough, right? Because I'm constantly helping others, right? And in that process, so I didn't have a car. So the church people drive me around, right? So I have a chauffeur. Now they take me to places where they want me, take care of these people, blah, blah, blah. We have nobody to do it. Can you fix this person's well, blah, blah, blah. I do all of this. And when they say, can money? No, don't worry about it. And so one church, two church, three different churches: Baptist church, Methodist church, Catholic church. 4 years ago, I started going to, I would go to one service and the next, and they were lined up perfectly, so I could just go from one to the next, right? And when they realized that I was doing this, they said, "What are you doing? What are you doing with those Catholics? They're like pagans. What are you doing with those Methodists? They're terrible people." And then I got them all to work together. We started a food bank. And we instead of like feeding about 100 people a month, we were working together. And then I found this woman who was like, a force of nature. We were feeding 20,000 people before the event. And then when the event happened, and it wiped this place out, they talk about actual, Pogey and Trade and Elks Mills and Banner Elk and Boone and Hampton and Irwin, 250,000 people, no help whatsoever, right? But we pulled, because we had already been doing this in these neighborhoods. We had a supply chain, and God was very blessed to it took out 26 in North Carolina, but we could still get from 81. And so we, had resources to not only get food and shelter. I mean, we got everything. The county didn't do it. Cities didn't do it. State didn't do it. FEMA did. Nobody did it. We did, right? And we, over 300 churches from around the country, even from other countries. We had a group from Turkey come and volunteer and bring resources and cook and help. You know what I mean? When you are doing that kind of work with us, you will be taken care of. But when you're all alone, when it's only you, it's really hard. There's Jamie. Jamie, what? Give our brother here, Mythos, some help. They won't let me go. They won't let me go. Then you let go. You know. That's why I've died 7 times. Every time I died, I basically let go. And by doing that, I learned something about myself and the universe around me. Jamie, read what Mythos has said and then respond. Give him, because Mythos, Jamie's a person who's had some hard times, right? And if they won't let you go, ask yourself, why won't they let you go? Meaning you must be a valuable asset. See what your value is, you know? That's one of my skill sets. I'm very good at reading people and reading the situation and seeing the value in what's going on and negotiating a win-win. Right? And the other thing is that for some reason, not for some reason, I am not a threat to anybody, even the powers that shouldn't be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a threat. And in many ways, I'm an asset, right? So Mythos, virtually on the internet, on YouTube, everybody and his brother has, told the truth about every, dark blah 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 there is. There are no secrets. There really aren't. Really, you know. The biggest secret is what is the darkness and in the world that keeps us going. Our friend here who's talking about the higher echelons and what's going on.
Authorities, and who are well aware of the underlying reason of what is going on. As a result, society has divided into 2 unequal parts that can roughly be called the revived and those in dormancy. As you see, my dear, those in dormancy have turned out to be much more numerous than you expected, and it is impossible to wake them up now. That is why leave them in the anabiosis of this 3rd dimension matrix and go farther along the road of evolution with your wonderful planet. Many of them are even impossible to wake up by the shocking disclosure of the world government's crimes that in the nearest future will start widely to show. They will keep on telling you that it is slander and conspiracy theorists' fiction, as their conscience is totally unprepared to accept anything beyond the program of the 3rd dimension life instilled into them. At the present stage, human society can be compared to creatures of a wide range of origin who are closed up in a fold. So now, when the gates of the fold are open wide, they are headed for only by pure and light human souls, while all the rest prefer to remain in the habitual prison of the 3rd dimension world. Sometimes unbearable, though. Try, my dear, to look at everything in a wise and impartial way, and with a...
So does any of that touch your heart, Mythos? Can you understand that we are in an amaze? Why you're going through so much is that we're going through, almost a non-historical point of reference. Stuff is going down in such a way that it really, it has, you study history, you can see that this has occurred over and over again. Every empire that has fallen is, pretty much done the same thing. So, but on the larger point of view, what you are experiencing, which is a larger point of view. It's not just you being attacked. you are a reference point. I can see that you are a reference point to a bigger picture, right? That when I leave this life, I will be right back in the same environment another day, and then mess with me as a representation. Yes, I was speaking on this since 2012 at a determined of my own. Life was 18, showing people how to access a deep web and all. An awake guy. Yes, you're an awake guy, but you're awake to that three-dimensional darkness, right? Which is an illusion of these reptile creatures. Look at David Icke. David Icke is, yeah, I've known David since the 90s, right? And he was one of I was out there in that, new age community, the flying saucer community, the alternative energy community, that blah, 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 blah. And I knew all these ancients of great character. And, they were trying to get me to go along to get along. And I did to a certain point. But I always had this line, which they truly respected because I never dissed them or their thingamajig, right? And within their thingamajig was other elements of what you're dealing with, right? So I was exposed to all of that. And I never joined, I never served. I was always there to, in every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. And the element of the esoteric and occult of that level are do this, right? If you know anything about the Masonic world, so above, so below, the white and black checkerboard, that whole thing, right? Way you get lost, the way you get chewed up, the way you won't be able to escape because they won't let you because they're just milking you like a cow for your angst and your adrenaline. Is that the only way you can cut loose from this is through love, not going deeper into the darkness of the dark web or any of that crap. I never played with that. That was a useless piece of crap. All of those kind of, you want to go conspiracy theories. It's a joke. It's all a friggin' joke because, everything that's conspiratorial, yeah, that's it. That's this whole thing is that, right? Theory just means, oh, it's an idea, right? So but if you give it your energy, that's where you go. You'll get stuck. Like I don't do really, and it's the only social media I do. And if I only get 500 and something subscribers, that's fine, right? Because this is a shamanic ceremony, right? I drop the pebble of love's co-creation into the World Wide Web, and it goes out. Right? And there's tons of people doing the same thing on YouTube. YouTube has a zillion people doing some pretty great stuff, and there are a lot of people who are well known, like Dr. Greer, and you name it. There's just a ton of people. Everyone who is out there, even guys like what's his name. Everybody who's what's his name, Joe Rogan, right? He's the big hot dog. He's being used, yet he also he's being used for light and dark things, right? He is his best when he is not plugging into his ego, but just being that innocent questioner of what's going on. Here's some spirit cycle. Not making it up. No, I know you're not making it up. I can feel exactly what you're going through. Yes, and people kind of look at you as entertainment, and that's why I do my shtick. Hey, don't believe a word I say. This is just for your entertainment, because this is shamanic ceremony. I'm plopping that little pebble into the pond, and that vibration is going out and affects everyone, even if they don't know it is. Do you remember our conversation? Yes, of course. Why do you think I talk to you? I don't just talk to anybody, you know. But there's one of the things I learned. So, I'm a pretty old guy, right? And I've had probably 20 different lives, right? And I've died 7 times. I still got 2 more to go, right? So, and I'm working on um, finishing, tying up. See, one thing I became, from as an infant, stuck the knife in the outlet, and electricity affected me, right? And so, pretty much, I relate to everything electrically, on the electromagnetic spectrum. And then I realized there are other frequencies. Once I started fooling around with super high voltage, Tesla coils. Once I learned how to make Tesla coils. Once I realized, I read about physics that isn't, Newtonian physics. That what's the difference between a wave and a particle? Your spirit is the difference, right? What spirit you put into it. So when I would make these Tesla coils, right, and I didn't have to make gigantic, I made one gigantic one, 10-foot tall, gazillion Teslas, and it obliterated every electromagnetic spectrum there was in like 60 miles. I was 10 years old, and my grandma's house was right in the flight path of Kennedy and LaGuardia, so those guys showed up. What's going on? They thought my grandma says, you can't come in without a warrant. Oh, we're FBI, and she said no. And so the guy who was really in charge, who had a nice $200 suit and a $100 haircut, he came over and he shooed all the morons away who had jackets with FBI and FCC and FAA and all that kind of stuff. Then get back in their cars, and he talked to my grandma, right? And I was standing like behind her apron, and he looks down at me, and he looks at my grandma. He looks in the house, and he goes, "So, what was your carrier frequency, and what was the angstrom of your coil?" And I was like, "Oh wow, this guy knows what I do," and I just started blabbing away. And he smiled and goes, "Can I see it?" And my grandmother says, and he goes, "Listen, ma'am, your son is," and she goes, "It's my grandson. Your grandson is a real valuable asset. He's like a diamond in the rough. And I'm in charge here, and I am in charge of a lot of things. And I'll tell you, ma'am, from this moment on, this boy is not going to be bothered, and you're not going to be bothered, and he will have the greatest opportunities for the rest of his life, and he will be able to choose because that's what we want him to do. We don't want to, sully his perspective by our authority." That's what this guy said, right? So my grandma stood back. I took the guy down. I showed him everything, right? And he showed me how to control the bias of the field so it wouldn't obliterate the whole freaking electromagnetic spectrum and, cause the radars and the radios and the everything. He said, "You do this and, it'll be fine." And he said, because this thing was like as big as I made it as big as the basement, it's like 8 feet tall and had a diameter of about 4 foot. He goes, "Listen, size ain't everything. It's the quality of the frequency, the quality of how this is being manifested. That's that, He's the guy who gave me the little logo of, in every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger within your conscious intent." So that's what's the most. He says, I'm looking at this thing, and I see 89% of this is conscious intent. And you were thinking about every little, when you were shellacking every little wire, you had conscious intent. You couldn't do this. I mean, you didn't have a jig. You didn't have anybody telling you what to do. You probably read something in Scientific American. You probably got a transformer out of a, oil burner. or maybe a neon sign, and you intended, you saw what this was within your conscious intent, not in a classroom, not on a blackboard, not on anyone telling you what to do. He goes, not many people can do this. You can. You're 10 years old. You're 100. You're older than I am, and I'm. This guy was old, and he goes, "Don't worry about anything. Just keep talking to God." And he understood that I was. So anyway, somebody just drove by. I'm gonna go see who it is. Okay, end stream. I'll be back. Or you guys talk. Why don't you just talk? Here, I'm gonna play this, and I'm gonna just go check out something.
Everything in a wise and impartial way,
So,
and with a touch of good humor, not getting emotionally involved into this natural selection of souls according to vibrations. Trust in the fate and the laws of the universe, whose performance features the speed never seen before. Everyone reaps as they have sown, and your interference into other people's life can produce a negative effect on you yourself indeed, because it automatically results in violation of these eternal and unshakable laws of the universe. And the last thing I would like to say, in respect of your attitude to the people around and to the current events in general, I see that impatience that many of you are seized with throws you back and sometimes reduces to nothing all your spiritual progress. You are so eager for the wide disclosure of the ruling top's crimes to start as soon as possible that you are living by this idea, only spending too much time on searching for the information relevant. As a matter of fact, my dear, it is accounted for by your desire to prove you are right, since a lot of people in your environment not simply disbelieved you, but also persisted in their opinion in a rather aggressive manner. Therefore, being unaware of it yourselves, you generate the feeling of pride and superiority that by no means encourage your spiritual growth. Well, what is the way you should ideally behave during this hard period of the final fight between good and evil on earth? Before all, you should stifle negative emotions of all kinds in yourselves, one of which impatience exactly is, as well as desire to prove to everybody that you know everything better than the others do. Yet the truth is that none of you knows for sure what is going on behind the scenes, thus subtle and sometimes unpredictable the game played there is. Therefore, now you should concentrate all your attention on yourselves and realize to a full extent the fact that your own harmonious and balanced inner state can speed up the process of revival and disclosure. Thus, not getting emotionally involved into these processes, you can well encourage them in terms of energy. We have already talked a lot that each revived person, just by their presence and energies characteristic of them, triggers the chain reaction of many other people's revival. And the more people manage to increase their vibrations, the sooner disclosure of truth will occur. The two processes are interconnected and interdependent. Disclosure cannot occur without revival of a sufficient amount of people. And the reason is as follows. If the overwhelming majority of the planet's population remains dormant, no matter what words are said or what facts are referred to for proving them, such people's conscience will simply be unable to digest the information, thus shocking for them. Therefore, it is of extreme importance for a certain percentage of Earth's population to be ready to accept such information this time. Then they will pick up the baton and will start their explanatory work among those
who listen. So I suggest anyone who's having real issues, like I've been a counselor for 40 years on every level. I was, basically I studied, I started out learning the healing arts through my experience of being a conscientious objector, because when my draft board caught up with me in 1970, they said, because I didn't break any laws, I was just, I got out of high school, I went to college, I had a deferment. Um, the college I was going to was, it was a good school, Hofstra University, it was a good school, almost Ivy League, like Ivy League Jewish, and so, and I was doing great there because I was actually working. I worked for Lester Polakov at Lincoln Center. He was, and that, he was the head designer on Broadway shows on Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall, um, you know, Madison Square Garden. So I was the ME at all those places. At 19, you know, I started working for Herbert Berghoff when I was 14. Right, I worked for Billy Graham of the Fillmore East and West, and um, guy who owned Joshua Lights and Pig Light Show. What's his name? It'll pop into my mind. Anyway, so I was doing all that, before I ever went. Didn't even finish high school. It was Allen Ginsberg's roommate. At 1617 on 9th Street, Avenue B. I was Lisette Modell's. She had this salon, but for Magnum photographers, and I was like, how old was I when? Well, when I first met her, I was probably 17. Right. When I really got to be a Magnum kid, I was probably 21. Right. So anyway, so I was all over the place. You want to hide from the powers that be, you do it in plain sight, like in a city like New York, 18 million people. It's kind of hard. And if you don't have an address, I never had an address. I just was couch surfing at friends' places. Staying in abandoned buildings with bohemians and learning how to ride the rails from Adam Purple and the boys and girls. So that's in the '60s, what Nixon and his vice president called hippies. You know what hippies were? People who shot heroin in their hip. Spiro T. Agnew gave the flower children that noom de plume to try to diss them, right? And I thought the anti-war movement was a joke, because like I said, I knew all these people who were above being anything political. They were socially conscious, right? And and that's what the Bohemian movement was all about, what's his name? The kids, Queen had the, Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, that's what they were trying to talk about. So anyway, when my uh, draft board finally caught up to me, so I didn't break any laws, right? Yeah, I didn't tow it to Canada. I didn't burn my draft card. I did everything, the law, I got the card. I registered, but after I did that, and I was no longer being covered by educational deferments, there was nothing that, the school said, hey, he's not here. I didn't have to say that. There's nothing in the law that said I had to say where I was. I was just on the road. Right? I had no specific, I always kept like $40 in my pocket. So that was like, if you didn't have any money in your pocket, and if you weren't, was a white boy who usually, when I was on the bop, I always looked. I just fit in with that. I didn't stand out. You know, didn't have a big beard, didn't have long hair. You know, I looked as average as you could ever average. You know, did not stand out at all. Right? When people talked to me, I was always very upbeat. Right? Very much in love with Jesus Christ. You know, but not at to the point where this guy's old. No, what are you? I'm Christian. I love Jesus. I serve Jesus. How can I help you in Jesus' name? And that's what I do with this show. How can I help you in Jesus' name? Right? And so I have steered most people who had issues. You know, like I said, I've been a counsel of sorts for the last 40 years. And on an individual basis, the best thing you can do, so a lot of people I know have had drugs, right? And let's call Martyred Artist. He might be good to talk to on this motif. You stay right there. Where's this boy? Mm-hmm. Oh, here we go.
Captain Robert speaking. How can I help you?
Hey, homeboy. I'm live on the show, and
Welcome.
yeah, welcome. And can you go online and see the chat?
Yes.
There's a young man. His name is
Thapa of Babylon?
yeah, that's it, right? And so
Yeah.
he's
Welcome.
so he is being emotionally, psychically attacked, right?
He identifies as a targeted individual?
Yeah,
Okay.
And so I thought you could shed some light on this because I was telling him that you can't go at this all by yourself, that you need to have a community, right?
Helpful, depending upon the community.
Right. But you had that experience, right? You had issues and that you really couldn't get out of them until you sought a community, right?
Yes. You can say that.
Okay.
And then it kind of, I don't want to say I've discarded it, but it's certainly been more refined.
Right, and you evolve. See, that's the whole thing. Instead of getting stuck in something else, you used it as the tool, the really good tool that it is, to better yourself to move forward, right?
Correct. And when that was my personal recovery. Just for clarification with your audience, I do identify as a person in long-term recovery. I've been clean and sober for about 17 years. I'm not sure whether my experience may help this young man, but I will do my best. I also have a clinical certification here in New York State, known as a CASAC, which stands for Credential Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Counselor. So I serve in that capacity in terms of an income, as well as being part of a 12-step community, which is not profit-based, which I don't get a check for. And overall, I think any one of the major patterns that people who find recovery from whatever is ailing them is a community, and also being a part of and giving back to that community once the individual has kind of gotten to a place of stability, you know. But like what you had said about using the 12-step meetings as a tool is correct. And I often tell clients in my official capacity that counseling, being engaged in some kind of mental health treatment, whether it's therapy or what have you, these things and institutions are tools, and they are tools only. And I often caution clients or participants in that sort of venue to really kind of keep that up front in the process, and recognize that they are really the key to their recovery. They are the source of the suffering. They are the source of the recovery, and to kind of be you know, responsible for their part in their process, rather than where our society keeps us very passive. Like, okay, I drive up to the Burger King window and I get my slop and I eat it. You know, unfortunately, as children and even as adults, we're not really told, like, or taught or shown or even encouraged to participate in a mental health regime, or even a health regime for that matter, that's beneficial towards you, rather than being passive and just being like, well, you know, where's the big teat that I have to suck on and I'll feel that, which is really the pervasive control system of our society. So you know, but again, if you bypass that,
right,
for a lot of freedom.
right, because otherwise you're just trading one addiction for another.
Correct. It becomes a dependency, an unhealthy dependency.
Right. So take a moment and
please
read what this young man has been saying. You know, he's saying, you know, profile was when they sent me 409th Street in Spring, blah, blah, blah. See, you know, and see, they sent me again to my life. Men ordered, called Empire, blah, blah, sent ID, picture, blah, blah. I mean, he is being placed into a position of being a character actor in the movie.
Well, it would appear from what I'm reading that wherever he's being placed in terms of housing or just in the system in general is exacerbating already pre-existing mental health conditions. And I see this a lot in the social services milieu, where it's kind of like that fast food thing. You know, like, I can't speak to his individual experience,
right,
but I can speak to what I've observed, where it's like, you get a guy, you slap a couple of mental health diagnoses on him that could or, you know, be correct or not. You know, I don't know. And then it's like, okay, we got to get him housing, we got to get him this, we got to get him that, and there's no proper supports in place to allow for some kind of stabilization. And this is just indicative of the system, where, you know, yeah, it's great, you gave him a house, but if there's no sort of, and I, you know, and I'm not blaming social workers or anybody like that, the system is kind of stretched, and due to lack of funding and lack of really the priorities towards folks who are kind of in trouble, they get kind of pushed to the side. And because mental health and substance use disorder, that's a stigmatized population.
right,
And until that stigma goes away, or is at least minimized through education, which is what I'm trying to take this opportunity to use this platform for a few minutes, and just to talk about this stuff, they're not hopeless conditions.
right.
And if we move away from the stigma, and these folks are treated with some dignity and respect, and specifically the money allocated towards help, you would have less incidents like what we're experiencing now with this young man.
Right. And the thing is, it's like back when the Floyd Black Lives Matter thing was a few years ago, and people going on about defunding the police, blah blah blah, right? Basically, the police are doing exactly what they're designed to do, and that is to keep the population in line, right? And that's they're not really there to serve and protect. Some are. Certain elements of the police do that. I mean, when I worked at it, there were a lot of us who were doing that, and there are a lot of policemen who do it, and they're allowed to do it because it enables the system to seem to be somewhat, oh well, there's some bad apples, yeah, it's a little incompetent, it's a bureaucracy, blah blah blah. But in reality, all of these systems are doing exactly what they're designed to do.
Correct. Yeah, I used to be under the myth that the system is broken. No.
No.
It's working perfectly fine, but it's not working for the folks it's quote unquote advertised.
Right, exactly. And so, and the only way that can really change, and it does change, and the only time it does change is when the community comes together and says, "Listen, we're going to be involved here, and we're going to make sure that our tax dollars actually do serve us." And now that works for a while until people get bored and stop being involved. I mean, every time I've seen it happen a number of times where the community, it's terrible, it's blah, blah, blah. The community gets involved. They put their hands across many. A really probably best example of that in the United States was San Francisco in the 70s with Harvey Milk and Mayor Moscone. There was a small group of rich people who controlled everything and played all those. San Francisco had Hispanics, blacks, Italians, Jews, gays, Christians, Chinese, Japanese, and about 5 other minorities. And the rich people played them all against each other for years and years. And the movie Chinatown was a great example of that. I mean, if you really watch that movie 5 or 6 times, you can see that thread of it all the way to the very end where the girl gets shot and, Jack Nicholson is kind of going crazy and his buddy who's the cop says, "Hey, Jack, it's Chinatown." And that's San Francisco. And Milk and Moscone brought all those people together and were taking San Francisco away from the rich people, and then Dan White shot Moscone and Milk in the head and got off scot free.
Too many Twinkies.
Yeah, for Twinkies, and then that whole Dianne Feinstein, Madame Filipowski, all of those they were Democrats, they were liberals, they were progressives, but they were serving that rich ilk. And that's why they're extraordinarily wealthy right now.
Well, I mean, they took advantage of a situation for money, profit, and control.
Right. And
power and control.
Right. Power and control. And threw away whatever they said they felt, whatever we're going to serve the people. Right. Which and because it was shown to them that if you actually do organize the people, which you can do, Moscone and Milk did, all you're going to do is end up with a bullet in the head.
Well, that's the message that was sent, and they received it.
And you know what? Yep. And they
I can't spend my money if I'm dead.
Right. Exactly. And I'll be in power forever until I die. Look at Feinstein. Listen, it's. I mean, I don't necessarily agree, but I'm not her. Right.
I'm not in her mind. I don't know what motives are. I don't even want to put, in my attempt to be a Christian, I don't even want to put any judgment.
Well, and that's very good. I
just want to observe it.
Right. I have to give you.
That's not easy. That's not easy because we're conditioned in our society.
Right.
Everything's black, white, left, right.
Yep, exactly.
Wrong, right, no in between, no actual. And that way of thinking, dualistic thinking, is only benefits a system that reflects that. So in essence, like, it's hard to love your enemies, but that's what we're taught as a Christian.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you let them stomp all over you.
No.
But I don't need to be spiritually contaminated by sort of engaging in that. And I have to be upfront about it. But I mean, I certainly have my moments where I fall back into that, just being a human creature who's sort of incredibly fallible. But I've just found for my own personal mental and spiritual well-being, I really am doing my best to just avoid, these are my enemies, these are my friends. Like, it doesn't do me any.
And I
what
don't.
other people do is none of my business. But I know
But the bottom line is,
I think it's a little bit more effective as far as dealing with people and coping with situations.
but also as a scholar, I kind of look at these things as historical events, and I don't whitewash what occurred.
No, nor do I. I mean, listen, Dan White shot a man. That's very clear.
No, Dan White basically.
Dianne Feinstein used the political machinations of her benefit.
Yep.
I mean, that's Machiavelli.
Yes,
Machiavelli was born way before Dianne Feinstein.
Exactly.
And, Grog the caveman was probably doing things like that before Machiavelli was born.
You got it.
So,
right. So the real issue is, and how we get back to our friend, because I don't know if you've been reading what he's been writing here.
I've been looking, yeah. I mean, at points he seems like he kind of, he kind of said that he seemed happy that I understood what were some of the things he's experienced. But again, then it kind of flips to that I'm the center of the film noir movie.
Right, exactly.
And the narrative. So I would suggest if he's having an episode, to get to some kind of hospitalization as quickly as possible.
And the other thing I find, and why I involve myself with 3 different churches, because they have 3 different ways of dealing with things. Yet they
3 different lunches.
Yeah, right, exactly. That was really it.
It's not choice, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't give Diane a fucking hard time when I just called you on your motives. Now you're laughing. You little you.
So anyway, bottom line of what I find when I find someone who's got some serious problems is to say, listen, the best thing you can do, you can't attack this all by yourself. It's not you against the world. It's never going to work. No,
that doesn't work, and no matter what level of pathology, or even if you're quote unquote normal.
Right.
Exactly. I know I've had the bumps and bruises to prove that to myself. So absolutely. So that's why I'm saying, I'd say to the young man, try to get the stabilization in place, but then also whoever's around you to maybe guide you towards getting involved in some sort of support. There is I don't know about North Carolina, but I know across the country and here in New York State, there's a lot of what they call peer support, and that's peer support from like the meaning of the word peer.
Right.
Someone who's had the exact experience. They've gone through the system. They dealt with social workers in this. They dealt with the aggravation of the hypocrisy, and have come to a place of stability where they're managing the mental health to the point where they can be of service to others. I would suggest to the young man, if he's young or whatever, but they really try to suggest that he get involved with something like that as well, because then you just can see a little bit of hope in another human being that's actually been to the quote unquote other side of what you've experienced. And that's a big movement that's happening in this country. So, that's something I would suggest you look into.
And that's called peer
advocacy.
So, I would suggest that to see what you can find. And also, one of the things I loved about growing up in New York City, a city of 18 million people, all you had to do is go 4 blocks over, and it was like another little town. You could start over. You could be somebody else. You could, right? And that was, especially when I was younger. But once I got to be about 27 and was all over the place, that was not as clear cut. But It was when I was younger, and it really enabled me to try so many different things out, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the one thing I really love about this city is you have, even now in 2025, and I've lived here since, well, on and off since 1991. So I've lived more here than I've done because I grew up on the suburbs of the island, Long
Which
Island.
was in the shadow of
I've
North.
lived here a lot longer.
Right.
But that's what I loved. You have firsthand access.
Yep.
Like when I wanted to be involved in TV, I just, made phone calls. Hey, I'd like to work, and you could go, oh, here's my studio. Here's the address. I mean, it wasn't always that easy. You had to knock on a lot of doors. Or just if you saw somebody on the street who looked maybe interesting or was reading a book that you liked. Most New Yorkers, if not all, like real New Yorkers, people who've been here a long time, who are not trying to pretend that they're a New Yorker by being an asshole, because that's bullshit. The people who behave that way, they're not actually from here.
Right, they're not New
They're
Yorkers.
like they think they have to have that. They're like somebody told them that.
Right.
That's not the way it goes. Yeah. But they'll tell you. And we love to New Yorkers. We love to talk. Obviously, you and I are New Yorkers. We talk till we bleed. So, but that's the best thing. But I think in major cities, not that I've been to many, are like that.
Yeah,
because
all
you have
cities,
that access.
Yep.
And that's, now it's sort of been replaced with the internet, which is okay, but it only goes so far.
Right.
Because I believe a person when I can see them eyeball to eyeball.
Right.
I can tell their experience, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, by the way, they conduct themselves.
Right.
If they tell me, oh, it's great, I see that they're frowning, I'm like, well, maybe that's not something I want to try.
Right.
But no, I've had a lot of, you and I, our lives are very parallel in the sense that we went for the things that maybe on an intuitive level were interesting and just had the perseverance to just keep at it, whatever it was.
Yep.
Right now, I went to that conference a few months back, the substance use treatment conference, and I got some great ideas from it, and now I'm trying to facilitate some things for my organization. Now, you talked about how do we change things, right? You talked about galvanizing a community towards something. My sort of spirit has been telling me, because I view myself as an educator, an orator, I'm a counselor of many different hats, but I like doing presentations, and I would like to do more to educate and teach other counselors. And what a great way to influence and help change things on whether there's a small level, it's a little ripple in the pond, about the piece about stigma with people who I deal specifically with folks who struggle with substance use problems. But what better way to do that than to kind of plant those seeds in the students that I'll be educating to carry that message, and that's how things change. To me, that's a way that I could, be of service and hope to change things a little bit,
Well, all through history of the guilds and such, it was learn, practice, teach.
Yeah.
In every discipline. I was a medical dude, and that was what it was. When I was an electrician in the union, that's why I was really successful at that, because I was all about, learning it, practicing it, and then teaching it, to instead of.
Well, that's the best way to learn something or one of the ways I've found is when you're learning something, always bear in mind you're going to be teaching someone this. That actually solidifies the information better in an individual, as opposed to, well, I'm just going to memorize these questions for the test.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, give a shit, because you'll pass the test, and in 10, 15 years from now, you're not even going to remember. And it was just kind of like, well, what was the point? Well, that's unfortunately one of the issues with the education system. It's just to teach the kids how to pass the test. And there's no application. There's no like, hey, you know what? If I learned this, the more, like, I heard the parallel like this. One of my mentors shared this with me. Ignorant people are selfish people. And that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Because if you don't know anything, you don't have anything to transmit. And you can carry a bunch of knowledge in you, but then you're just a fool on the hill.
Yep.
Like the Beatles song,
Yep.
or the Nowhere Man, making nowhere plans.
Yeah, yeah.
You got all this head full of knowledge that might stroke your ego a little bit. But I'd rather get laid than stroke. So I have to participate in life.
Yep. And
You
you
know?
have to, really, to have a life, you have to serve others.
Yeah, it's a huge component.
Yeah.
And it gives meaning and purpose.
Right.
You don't, like, because the system will have you feeling like, well, if you don't have this, you're a piece of shit. If you don't, if your life doesn't conform to some other life that's not even remotely close to yours, because we're indoctrinated into that, then if you're not living that, then you feel less than. But being of service to others is like one of the greatest, it's like magic tricks to break out of that nonsense that society has created in your mind. The controllers or the man or the archons or whatever you want to call them. That's how you break out of it. You show, because the system wants you to hate your fellow man.
Yep.
Jesus Christ wants us to love God
By serving and
with
loving
all
our
heart,
brothers.
and love thy neighbor as thyself.
Yep, exactly. So it's and that's why I do what I've done my whole life, is that I found it a lot more fun, more interesting. I learn a lot more. I grow as a spirit, because you look at all of these guys, the billionaire bros. They're as hollow as you could. They're no more than poster boys.
I would like to think. I mean, I can't say. I don't know, this might sound very Pollyannic, but it kind of helps me with my mental and spiritual health to kind of view it this way. I'm sure Elon Musk was a very curious child and had an interest and wonder in many things. And perhaps somewhere along the line, it just got kind of subverted.
That's, of course. No, there
But
is no
underneath
such
all
thing.
that,
Yes, there's no such thing as a bad child.
He's a child of God just as much as I am.
Yes, exactly.
I don't think,
Yep.
I'm really trying my best to just view people like that. It's like, it's not, I don't have a problem with Elon Musk as a child of God.
Right.
I have a problem with his behavior.
Right, exactly.
That I need to really, really, really cram that into my consciousness.
Right.
Because I travel a lot lighter, and I'm above the whole "you're my enemy, you're my friend" back to what I was sharing earlier.
See, what you're
Because
doing is,
if I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic.
you're not judging.
Meaning
You're
that
not
I'm a
judging.
Trinitarian.
Right.
I believe all is one. That's in my religion.
Yep, exactly. That's not one is because and it's been a hard road for the three different churches I got to work together, because when I first started doing that, they were all going, "Oh, those Catholics are pagans. Oh, those Methodists are heathens. Oh, the Baptists." But once they all got together and broke bread, and then when things happened that we had to help other people, they realized that no, these guys are great, and so they really mellowed out on just being ideological. So it's and that's the real deal, is that you have to be able to not just forgive and forget, but have an open heart, so you're not judging to begin with. You still there, kid?
Yeah, I'm still with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the story. And have you read any more of our friend's story here? Because it's reading, like a story rather than, it's like what's happening to him, what this, that, but it's not really describing how he feels or how it's manifesting within his spirit. It's talking about the physical ramifications of the experience. I felt like,
Yeah, he's a little. I mean, it sounds like he's talking a little bit what happened in his past.
Right.
He's kind of like going back and forth a bit. Yeah, he says, I'm trying to explain what has happened over 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm certainly, and I'm not trying to diminish anything that you're sharing,
Right.
Mr. Babylon. However, I just sort of because sometimes when we're kind of too close to our own narrative, we can't necessarily see outside of that. And there's nothing wrong with you looking at some of the stuff that may have led you to this point. It's perfectly fine. But I think using Bob and myself as a sounding board would be helpful. Because we're not like all like in that swamp right now. But we can kind of guide you out of it a little bit if you want to.
And the thing is that we've been there, right? We've been there.
Absolutely, that's very important. I failed to say that.
Yes,
yeah,
we've been there.
No, I've been there. I mean, I've been there.
Yeah, he's been there, right? So, and I've been there too, but I've always had this, and if you remember me talking to you in Boone, I have a, what's the term? I never really have a stick in the fire. I'm not having an expectation. I'm not have a judgment. I'm deconstructing the situation. That's what I do. I analyze. I'm an Aquarian's Aquarian. That's what I do. And
you're a double doctor.
Yeah, I'm a double doctor, right? And my friend here, he's also an Aquarian. Our birthday's coming up soon.
My birthday is coming up soon.
Yeah. So the thing is, and when I was younger, one of my saving graces was that I was never always in the same place very long, right? Because my education brought me all over the place. And when I was in New York, I wasn't at my parents' house. As a little boy, I was at my grandma's house. But once I got to be 10, I was kind of on my own. It's really pretty much the story. I was either, on somebody's couch or I find an abandoned building or something. Are there still a lot of abandoned buildings in New York?
They probably are. I don't see them as much in my travels.
Right.
I wouldn't say so much in Manhattan anymore. Probably more in the outer area.
Yeah. Because Manhattan
and a lot of them are like not so much housing or buildings,
right.
but like a bit like industrial park kind of areas.
Right. And also,
that have been converted
in New York City. I used to hang out with Adam Purple, who was like the anthropologist of that. I mean, he was doing it since Second World War. But anyway, we stayed in a lot of where there'd be a lot, and there would be a basement that was more than 1 or 2 floors. Most people don't understand how New York buildings are built, and not everything is above ground. And do people still talk about the mole people? Is there still that going on?
Yeah, I think so, but I think they have a lower profile, no pun intended.
Right. Yeah, in the 70s, it was pretty.
But I'm sure they exist because the subways still exist.
Right.
And there's parts of the subway system that are like completely
abandoned.
They're completely like abandoned or like not even on a map.
Right.
There's a big thing in New York City where they call it urban explorer.
Right.
Where, guys, get a backpack, they get supplies.
Yep.
Flashlights and stuff so they can go into all these weird environments and people vlog and they do stuff about that. And some of those areas people do live.
Yep. And that's where
because these homeless shelters are
right.
in terms of rampant with tuberculosis, rampant with gangs and criminal activity and extortion. So it's like, fuck that. I'm not staying there. So found their own. You know,
Yeah.
it's a horrible condition, but if that's the alternative to being, especially like older folks, like being robbed or threatened by teenage gang members, you know, just or being told that you have to pay $20 just to use the shower, or you get the shit kicked out of you. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately, I have not experienced that firsthand. This is just anecdotally what clients and people I work with, because I started out working with the homeless population, which looking in retrospect was the best because I'm at the bottom.
Right.
And now I'm slowly aiming towards working with like sons and daughters of Saudi princes.
Yeah.
So you got to start at the bottom and work your way up. And it's interesting in how addiction is in all levels of society. So from the bottom to the very top.
See, and that's because
addiction is really an over-exaggeration of the human condition.
it's a human experience. It's not a class experience.
That's correct. And it's also one of the things that I try to promote is recovery, whatever the individual you're recovering from. Recovery is a human condition. You know, everyone's recovering from something, whether it's trauma, whether it's this, whether it's that. And that's something I'm trying to kind of promote as my little catchphrase, is that recovery is a human condition. That way, that minimizes the stigma, because we're all recovering from something. You don't have to ghettoize people because they have an illness.
Well, our friend here, who's on the live chat, what are you doing?
What am I doing now?
Yeah, it's all that noise.
Pushing a cart for the laundry.
Okay.
And then I'm going to the 99-cent store to buy some candles.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were doing. Well, I'm gonna say goodbye to you and talk to this young man here.
Yeah, thank you for the call, and hope we offered Mr. Babylon some suggestions.
Well, I hope he, because he said he said, I'd like a private conversation rather than a conference call. And now this is more than a conference call. It sounds, you know what it sounds like? That you're in a roller derby.
Conference call?
Yeah, you sound like you're in a roller derby.
I have Elon Musk on line 2. I have Donald Duck on line 3.
Yep.
And I have, as a representative of the archives, I have Grog of the Lizard People.
Yeah, Grog of the Lizard People, yes.
I have William Shatner's wig on line 5. Which is its own entity.
Well, I'm glad the phone gods put us together.
Yeah.
And
I'm doing rather well.
You sound like you are. Good. That's why I haven't really called lately.
I stay in the cave sometimes.
Yes. Well, okay, buddy.
All right, gentlemen.
Okay, talk to you later. Yep.
Because you can.
Yep, I love you. Certified name means extreme embarrassment on behalf of someone. Well, Mr. Babylon, again, my lifestyle is pretty much on the bottom. I don't, stay in one real place because I can't. The Deep Green is basically a campsite. So when we had that Uber, when it was like minus 8 degrees Fahrenheit, I had to get out of there. And the roads were totally. The hurricane that came through has blown out all the county roads. So what used to take me half an hour to get someplace now takes me an hour and 40 minutes. So I have been staying at a number of there are a number of organizations that I'm involved with, help put together, take care of people who have no one to take care of them, and some of these places are, need a den mother, right? So I have been doing that for the last few weeks, and so these people are, and so I understand exactly what you're going through, Mr. Belmont, because a lot of these folks have a similar story. And they have no one to, so I am there to listen and to help and to give a perspective. So my email is I get 100 emails a day, and a number of I really don't get spam that much or commercial, but I do have a lot of threads that come through it of research, right? So, and I don't know, right now I have a pretty good access to the internet, and but when I'm in the deep green, not really, right? And so, if you could once again leave your phone number um, on my email, and anybody can, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Like my friend who I just spoke to, that just spoke to us. He was a person who had he was, I was his last shot, and that was about 3 years ago, and he's, and he was doing really good, but he was on that wavy line. He needed, someone who wasn't uh, the same old same, telling him the same old same. I was that person who listened more than talked. Just like our conversation here with you, you just sent it. Okay, let's see. Let's see if I can see it. Ooh. Doo, 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 doo. There we go. Promotion updates. Let's see. All mail. Let's see. The last thing that was sent at 4:27. Inspire your inbox. Epoch specials. Major cause of cells of disease. Epoch. Me. Uh, yeah, that's Jeffrey. So I don't see your email. It's the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Dude awake 42 at Gmail. Let's try see what my other guy says. Oh, boo, 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 boo. Yep, there you are. Okay, gotcha. So did you get that? I just sent you gotcha. Okay, I got your phone number too. Okay. Okay. So do you want to be a guest on the show? I can call. I mean, you already are. You're right there. So you can just stay on the live chat and we can talk. So I got your number. I got your email. I'll try and call you later. Okay. But let's talk now because you can help others, And really, that is one of the strongest things to build a life that you want to live that isn't being accosted by others. So I've been doing this channel for at least 7 years, if not longer. And I've had loads of trolls and nasty people and stuff like that. And in the beginning, when it looked like I was, going to be the hot whoop-de-doo, there were a lot of people who said, "Oh man, you can be a blah 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 blah. Let me be your, whatever that is that somebody, facilitates your channel for you." And I didn't know enough about any of this stuff to say, "Oh yeah, you can do it." Anyway, so long story short, um, in the first year, the cadre was quite interesting. I mean, it was at least 40 or 50 people on the live chat every time I did a show, and it was interesting. I mean, pretty deep stuff, and but it lent itself to be trolled, right? And so trolls would show up and be really obnoxious, and everyone said, "Get rid of him, hit that button there." And one time I did, and I lost the whole channel, so I have no idea what I'm doing. But I basically told everyone, no, no, no. These people are part of our community. We have to be here to serve them. We have to love them, right? We have to be there for them, right? And so, all of the kind of things that you can be trolled and blah 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 on this social media thing. Um, Basically, I just have one show, and if people show up who do that, I actually go deeper into who and what they are and get them to kind of communicate what's going on inside of them, which they never do. They always find an external reason for what's going on, right? And that's what gets rid of a troll. And mostly, like 90% of the time, those trolls became some of the greatest members of the country, like the man who just talked to you, right? He was one of those, and he's no longer like that, right? So that's what it's about. And so he had dealt with his substance abuse, right? But still, he didn't cut to the chase of why he had that substance abuse, right? But that was 3 years ago, and now he's done a great job. First I was his, sensei, and then I said, "Well, you need somebody right there." So he found himself a shrinky person, and that person was good for him up to a point, and then he was, And I said, "No, no, no. That person did a good job up to that point. Now you have to move forward. You don't need that person now. You need to find another avenue." And he has. He's moved forward on every, right? And so this guy, he's only one of at least 100 people who have called me at their level of utmost desperation, and they've gotten out of it, right? And 99.9% of all of them got out of it by getting out of their own head. I see that you're exhausted and you're reaching out. I understand that, right? And but you have to, you know, first of all, you have to knock. I mean, like me, when I died in 2014, I died because I was living an excessive life of hedonism within the corporate structure, and I was kidding myself, but not really. Meaning, I kind of had to do that. It was like doing social research, right? I had to work for those desperate lawyers who, they were on 11-figure salaries and living paycheck to paycheck. They were not happy folk, right? but they were representative of the corporate elite that is driving this whole planet into the ditch, and they're being manipulated. And most people don't realize that. David Icke. Everyone, like I said, I've known David Icke since the early '90s, and everyone used to, he's crazy, he's a nutter, he's this, and he never left his what he saw, right? And what he did was he did his homework. He studied, he researched, he really expanded his consciousness, not through drugs, but through spirituality, and doing the work. And he wrote, God, he's probably wrote 40 or 50 books. Yeah, he's made some money at it, but he didn't make him rich. His writing, it's like me writing the books I write. I'm not even trying to publish them. One day and I've only written 8 of the 18. So I guess I need to write a few more before it really kind of grabs and gets, covered and appreciated, etc. And I send it out to people and they read it and they go, oh, wow, this is great, blah, blah, blah. But I said, so how does it affect you? Oh, it's great, blah, 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 blah. So, but what insights did you? Oh, it's great. No, I don't want to hear it's great, blah, blah, blah. I want to know how it affected you, how it touched you, because I got another 10 of these things to write. And I'm at a point where I need to understand the depth of the continuity of my writing to the reader, because I'm a griot. The whole thing about a griot is I tell a story that the listener needs to hear to make the change in their life. That's what a griot does. It's a ceremonial thing. It's a shamanic thing. Good, Gustav. So good. You're paring down on the substances, but we live in a substance-rich society. I mean, right now I'm in a place where living in a deep green allowed me to. I had a garden. I ate burdock, mushrooms, and dandelions. Morels were mostly what I ate, and that was good. And I lived in a place that was sheltered from the environmental toxicity that's all around. You can't, you can live out in the middle of nowhere and still being sprayed upon, right? So, and our water tables are pretty much toast. So, but you have to rise above all of that, because the toxicity that your experience is one of spirituality and emotion, right? And the emotion that I read here in what you've said is mostly that you're being attacked, which causes anxiety and fear. So your cortisol and your other emotional enzymes are through the roof. That's kind of why you're in that state. Don't drink and don't. This is not a conversation. I'm being talked to. Well, then you talk to me. I reached out, friends and voicemail, and no one has done anything actually help me. In fact, most have actively attacked, made my life harder. Let's go back and read some of the stuff here. I went with a guy that Utah with him for 6 months. He broke down crying, telling me he felt like the devil for what he was done. Yeah, why did he do that? And he never told you. Text and video locations. basically specifics of what you were going through. I don't know if I can help you specifically on things that your individual relationships with individual people. Um, my basic motif um, that I can only tell you about my life is that from an early age, I was taught to have a really good perspective, meaning look 3, 4 blocks down. If you see something bad, go the other way. Just not be there when the bad shows up, right? Um, the other thing was to, I was taught at an early age, because when I was 7, I was murdered by a nun, crushed my throat, couldn't speak, broke the orbit in one of my eyes so I couldn't see out of it. I broke the little stirrup in my ear so I couldn't hear out of it, right? So I couldn't hear correctly, couldn't see correctly, couldn't speak. And so I was very blessed. I was sent to a Maryknoll sanctuary where there were a lot of very intelligent people, an audiologist, a ophthalmologist, all these different people. Yes, they were spiritual people, but they had disciplines and what was physically wrong with me. So I was like the $8 million man. They kind of put me back together. And it's kind of like, they could only put me back together in a certain way, meaning they couldn't put me back, my eye back to what it had been, but they could make it so it could work. And it works in a way that other people's eyes, I see different light frequencies, right? Kind of like a dog does, or a bat does, or an insect does. I can see higher frequencies than just the regular RBG, right? And the hearing, I hear very high frequencies out of this ear, right? So it's what's truly interesting is I can hear, um, especially out here in the Sawtooth Mountain Range, I can hear people miles away because that certain high frequency bounces all over the place, hits my ear, and I can hear it, right? And because my two ears hear at two different frequencies, it's almost like Doppler radar. So if I hear like a car coming, or a siren, or animals or people talking, I can kind of sense how far away they are and what direction they are in, right? Pretty accurately. So I have all these, but I was murdered, and when I came back, I had that those abilities. And many people, when I went to public school and I was tested, they wanted to put me in the spectrum of being disabled. Oh, he's blind. Oh, he can't hear. He can barely speak. Um, so they wanted to put me in that. Eh, you know, they didn't quite have that down yet. That was like in the 50s and 60s. So, but they give me an IQ test and I'd be off the chart. And you go, well, he'll work it out, right? And that's why I was actually very blessed to be sent to some really great schools and things that basically I found the right teachers who gave me mentoring, right? Saw the value in me and invested in me. And so when I met you at the IHOP, I saw the value in you. I give you books. I talk to you, and then I no longer came into Boone that much because I really didn't live there. I didn't live in. I lived about 30 miles away. But the IHOP closed. Other things, all the other things that I came to Boone for. I had a girlfriend there, a few other things. Things changed. So my life, and then I got involved with these churches and involved with helping other people and of that nature, right? So, and that is what my life has been. I've always been moving. I get to a place, I get involved, I do my best. I either, get something happening to move forward, or it gets to a point where that's where it is, and then I kind of move on, right? And that's kind of what I've been set here to do, right? Not to really, get married, settle down, and have kids. No, not so much. I mean, I may find a, you know, I've had a few girlfriends since I last saw you, and I don't know if they were a childbearing predilection, but anyway, we didn't. And bottom line is, I leave my whole life up to God. I'm a doula to God. I'm a doula to God's agape love. Right? That's it. That's where I'm at. Right? And only love will save us. Is pretty much it. Now, what kind of love are you? There are lots of different kinds of love, right? So there isn't just one. And so you really have to deconstruct yourself. The only way we can deal with our issues is truly to understand what's inside of us. And all those different people who've come through this channel. And, I've kind of reached out to and got involved with, basically, it's what it was. So, 2 hours and 6 minutes. So what do you want to do, Mr. Babylon? So it says here, I reached out to family and friends and law enforcement. No one has done anything to actually help me. In fact, most have actively attacked me or made my life harder. Well, why? How'd they do that? Why would they do that? You didn't, when I met you, you didn't seem like a person who, you know, you were an inquisitive young man, and the books I gave you, you seemed to actually read and appreciate. Right? So, what happened? Talk, call. Well, you have enough anonymity here, If you can talk about, it's like talking in group, There's another person there that might give you some insight. Usually there are other people on this thing that jump in. So yeah, you know, this is like group, right? So you want some help? So tell us, right there, when I read that there. Let's see. Uh, where did I just read that thing? I reached out to family, friends, and law enforcement. No one done anything actually to help. What do you expect? What kind of help did you want? Because, to get help, you kind of have to at least have some idea what kind of help you want, right? And so, what kind of help do you want, right? And in fact, most have actively attacked me. Why would they do that? And made your life harder. Let's see. Talk, call, no. Do it with my voice. Computer forensics. Oh, yeah. So basically, we live in this illusionary, matrix kind of world, right? And but there's many dimensions to this, right? And so, in reality, when we were placed here in the Garden of Eden, that's what it was, Garden of Eden. And we stayed there for a while, but it was all rainbows and unicorns and Skittles, and you can't really grow. You need, so that's when I died, came back, and they wanted to chop me up like bologna, and I wouldn't let them. And I, basically was able to get my clientele to get me the medical things I needed because they needed me more than I needed them. And so they did. And so, it got me, to where I am now, 240 pounds lighter. I'm probably 60 pounds lighter than you remember me as, right? And so, yes, my body, when you were that heavy, when you're 480 pounds for 15 years, that puts a lot of stress on I was not designed to do that, but I did it because I wanted to see what that life was like, that kind of level of hedonism, right? And I experienced it, and basically God said, no, this is, hedonism per se isn't bad. It's when you are experience hedonism as your God, right? Whenever you do anything as your God, that's when it's inappropriate, right? Spiritually, physically, however you want to look at it, it's inappropriate. So the bottom line is, I'm here to serve. My life is at this time, at other times my life was doing other things, but right now, this moment, this second, I'm here to serve love's co-creation. And that's why I'm talking to you, right? Because I see a value in you, and I see a value in talking to you here online so other people can appreciate it, right? You have my phone number, email, refuse to call, even though you experience the willing to. Yeah, well, I will. But right now we're on, this is a live, I didn't start this show to talk to just you, right? And you deemed to come on. So when you deemed to come on, you were part of the show. So you're still part of the show. And even when you are, and you are exposing yourself quite clearly, anyone can see. And what's interesting is the live chats don't seem to stay there once my shows go on my channel. I have no idea why, but I have no idea how this thing works. So it is what it is. But mostly it works quite nicely when the rest of the cadre is here and we talk. And so there's wrong. Let's see. With that, I wonder. So I'm trying to express why I'm talking to you on the show, because I think it would be valuable for others, right? And when I call you, it'll retain us too, right? But again, you have to be willing to open yourself up to yourself, not to me. I can see inside you. And there is something deeper in there that you don't want to look at. That is, the main matrix of that amplifies and manifests your experience, right? So I would find it valuable for you to express it so other people could see it. But there's nobody here, so there doesn't seem, you're the only one here, so there doesn't seem to be any interest. So we've been here for 2 hours and 14 minutes. So I'm going to say, okay, kids, I'll be back. Let's see what time it's now. Oh, boy, spring is going to be here soon. Because it's about 5:30. So I'll be back on Dreamy Dreamland in about 2 hours. I'm going to talk to Babylon here, see how he's doing. Okay, Mr. Babylon, I'm going to give you a buzz. Let's see. Just hold on. I want to make sure I got everything before I hang up with you, since I'm connected to you right now. Okay. Okay. I'm first going to try and get a hold of you on email. Let's chat on email. But I'm going to, so let's see. So did you get that on email? Because I'm going to check out here. If you have, we can talk on email.